Let's go live to former Labor Cabinet Minister and a regular on Newsday, Joel Fitzgibbon. Joel, great to see you as always. Let's start with the demand by the United States. The comment made by Pete Hegseth to your successor in the role as Defence Minister, you being a former Defence Minister yourself, and saying that Australia needs to bump up our spend to 3.5% of GDP. What did you make of it, and what did you make of the government's response?
It's unsurprising, Kieran, because this is the message they've been sending to partners and allies all around the world. And it is true that too many of those partners have been freeloading on the United States. We saw this writ large in Afghanistan, where NATO partners were doing only what they needed to do to meet their alliance obligations. But Australia is a bit of a different, in a different situation. I mean, our commitment to defence and to the United States goes well beyond what is in our budget. Joint facilities, of course, now rotations of submarines coming through Fleet Base West. We've got troops rotating through northern Australia. So, and of course, new commitments on critical minerals, which is important to the United States. But we will need to spend more. We've done a big defence strategic review, which received bipartisan support. What it told us is that our geostrategic situation in the region is deteriorating. The warning times are closing, and we need to rebuild and reshape our force. That's what we need to do. Now, putting up a GDP figure on it isn't really the right question. The question is, how much money do we need to put in to defence to deliver on the capability which is based on the guidance of the Defence Strategic Review. The other point to be made is that, and we are spending a lot more money, around an additional, by the end of the decade, the government will be spending twice what it was when it came to government, nearly, if not $100 billion a year. It's currently around 50. So we are spending a lot more, but there are these inherent internal constraints on how quickly you can spend money too, Kieran. We're not known for delivering defence capability projects on time or on budget or in a timely manner, or certainly not quickly. So defence can only do things so quickly, and you don't want to be throwing money at a defence force that's not even able to spend the money it already has.
And I would imagine, Joel, and you might be able to shed a bit more light on this, having been right there in the middle of these sorts of decisions and the diplomacy around it as well, because right now Kevin Rudd, as ambassador to the United States, along with the various other parts of the machine of government, would be trying to put together a message and a plan and a package, maybe along the lines of what you're talking about, at least as the first steps into that path. Because this debate we're having comes a week and a half, 2 weeks from the first meeting between Trump and Albanese.
Yeah, but look, I think it would be pretty inconsistent of the United States. And of course, every country right around the world is watching every word, if it wasn't also putting some pressure on Australia to do more. And we don't mind that, because we know that we need to do more, and we are doing more. And the time might come where we'll need to do more again. So as I think the Prime Minister indicated, we're more than happy to have the conversation with the United States. But I think there's a very significant recognition in the United States that we are doing more, and we are committed to the partnership. And we do recognise the changing situation in the region. And we do recognise that the US can't be left alone to do all the heavy lifting. But they also recognise that we're putting billions of dollars into their own defence industrial base, Kieran, as part of the submarine deal. So we've got a lot of positive things to talk about when discussing these matters with our great and powerful friends.
Yeah, indeed. So it's not like he's going to the meeting with nothing. He's got a lot to add to the debate, not the least of which I keep thinking back to Pine Gap as well, that major joint facility that is so important. I don't know if you can reflect on much around that, probably not, given the secrecy that goes with it. But that's an important part of our contribution to the alliance. We shouldn't underestimate that, should we?
Of course, Kieran. We don't talk in detail about the joint facilities, but yes, obviously it is critical to the global reach of the United States. And in a sense, the Americans need us almost as much as we need the Americans. So it's a true partnership in that sense, and I think it's always been seen as such. But they are absolutely entitled to say, hey, if you expect us to stick around in the region, we want you to do your fair share of the lifting. I think we're approaching that, but there's no doubt that in the future we'll need to do more.
On to the debate when it comes to superannuation, funds over $3 million. I find this really quite intriguing at the moment because you get some noises that a compromise might come, and then others, like, in the coalition, they're saying, no, we're not, no way, we're not going to compromise on this. And then the Prime Minister's saying he might be open to a compromise. Then Jim Chalmers saying, no, we're going to crack on and get this done. How do you see the debate unfolding at the moment, Joel, which, as I say, comes just weeks after Labor won 94 seats in the lower house? So you can sort of see why Chalmers is emboldened at the moment.
Yeah, look, I think reform to our superannuation system is important, Kieran. It's gone beyond its original intention. It was designed by a Labor government to ensure that people have basic income and comfortable income retirements. But over the years, it has been used as a vehicle to develop wealth. That wasn't its original intention. And by the way, much of that started back in about 2007 when John Howard removed the reasonable benefits limits, which restricted how much money you could put in at a concessional rate, and therefore restricted the extent to which it could be exploited. Now, those RBLs were very complex, and they did so on the basis of simplicity. But that's where the trouble began. But it has precipitated a need to do something about it, and do something about it we must. Now, the current architecture is pretty friendless, I have to say. I'm sure your viewers have noticed that, but I'm sure that both the Prime Minister and the Treasurer will be open to negotiation. I mean, the Greens have never seen a tax increase or a subsidy, Kieran, that they don't like the look of and don't support. Yeah. So we shouldn't put too much weight on what they're doing. I like to think that the government, regardless of the need not to secure their votes, might work with some of the more sensible in the Senate crossbench, those non-Green senators who have been in this debate in the last Parliament, which might have some sensible views about how we reform the system without some of the risks involved, I suppose, in taxing unrealised capital gains or indeed not indexing the threshold.
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't think the Albanese leadership and government will be that keen to just be siding with the Greens too much this term. Joel Fitzgibbon, thanks. We appreciate it. We'll catch you next week.